So what I'm talking about today, it's right at the top of your paper. I didn't come up with this name, but it's called More Than Friends, But Not Fiancés. And last week, John spoke to you guys all about how to be in the friend zone, all about how to be friends that aren't going to be, doing inappropriate things, that are going to be having hurt and doing all these weird things, just purely friends. And so part of that is we talked about how in order to have a radically different outcome than what the world offers, we need to be willing to take a radically different approach. Because you guys, hey, Alyssa Vandeveer, come on. So part of this with you guys, hey, I'll call out any of you guys that aren't looking at me, just so you know. So part of this is you guys have to be willing to step out of what the world is offering, what the world is asking you to do, what the world is saying, go get a 50% divorce rate, and whatever it actually is now. I know it's a little bit different. And we want to have something that is much better, something that is godly, something that is righteous, but not inappropriate. So part of that, which John should have talked about, is that we need to put up clear and healthy boundaries with friends. That every single person needs to know exactly what is happening. Every person that you and the girl, or you and the guy, whichever side you're on, you need to know exactly what is happening. That you're just friends, that you're not, this weird relationship that you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. The other thing is that John talked about how singleness is not evil. Singleness isn't something that you should be afraid of. Singleness isn't something that you should dread. It's not something that you should wish wasn't part of your life. Singleness is a blessing in its own. Marriage is also a blessing in its own. So, with all of that said, we are going to get into what is actually going to get talked about tonight. So, right at the top of your guys' worksheet, that very first thing is where it says training camp. And this is where we're going to start off. We're going to start off with how to get out of the friend zone. That's that very first little, fill in the blank thing. How do you get out of the friend zone? That is something, that is tricky for every person to figure out. Whether you're a junior high or in 6th grade, whether you're a high schooler, whether you're in college, whether you're 40 years old, whatever it is, it's something that a lot of people struggle with. And so, it takes different steps. And John touched on some of these points last week, or at least should have, that there are 3 aspects that go into getting out of this friend zone. And the very first one is the training period. And the training period is the time that you take to prepare for what is coming. That when you are training for a sport, when you're training for the Olympics, when you're training to go to war, when you're training to do a new job, when you're doing all of these things, the entire point is to prepare yourself for a significant step in whatever direction. In our case, it's a step towards a relationship. And getting out of the friend zone requires you to be at a place where you are training and not simply just sitting, waiting around. The very next step, and these are all like sports references, so bear with me. The next step is the tryout. And the tryout is the time that you go from just being that friend, just preparing yourself, just getting ready, to going, hey, can we go on a date? That kind of situation. That's the very next step in it. And then the last step is making the team. And the team that I'm talking about is, being in a relationship, being boyfriend, girlfriend. You guys follow with me so far? Give me some head nods. There we go. I like it. So, while you're in this place, I want to talk about the very first thing. When you are in the training, when you're in that point in life, there are several areas that you need to check off per se, that you need to train in, that you need to take time to make sure you are excellent in and are ready to move on to the next step. And so the very first point, I think it's on the worksheet. The number 1 section is that you need to become marriage material. That it is so important, guys, that you aren't going into dating with the idea of, it'll be fun to just hang out with this girl a bunch. It'll be fun to just, have somebody to buy me dinner. It'll be fun to have somebody to go to movies with. None of those things are appropriate or godly ways to move into a relationship. The end goal of every single relationship should be one sole thing, and that is, who said it? You're so smart. Smartest guy in the room over here. Marriage. Marriage is the final point of all relationships. I'm not saying every relationship is going to end in marriage, but that is the final goal for every single relationship you ever go into. So I want to challenge you guys that I'm going to bring up 8 different things. They're not numbered, they're lettered, which threw me off. 8 different things that you need to do to prepare yourself to be this marriage material we're talking about. So the very first point is, how is your relationship with God? Now you guys are going to write that down for a minute. It's so critical for you that when you are at a place where you want to prepare to be in a relationship, when you want to prepare to have a girlfriend, to have a boyfriend, to get married eventually, whatever it is, you need to first and foremost have a solid foundation in relationship with the Lord. That if you are at a place where you are not doing that, where you don't even know what being a Christian means, and if I come up to you and ask you, hey, what's a Christian? And you tell me, I don't know, you love God? Like that. If you give me that answer, you're not at a place to date. I'm just going to say that. So be at a place where you have a strong relationship with God. Second point, B, is how regularly do you do devotions, go to church, and serve? Be in ministry, serve other people, do homeless ministry, whatever, fill it in. Now, you guys should all be at a place where you are invested in this, first and foremost, this relationship that you have with God. Now, you shouldn't be at a place where you're like, yeah, I'm a Christian, I love God, I don't do anything about it, though. That's a very strong telling sign that you are not this marriage material that we're shooting for. C is, do you have freedom from past hurts? Guys, this one is really important for you if you're moving into a relationship. Now, when you step into a relationship with somebody, when you step out of this friend zone, when you're in that transitionary period, it's so important that you have sought out freedom from anything that's happened to you in the past or that you have done in the past. Whether that's a pornography addiction, whether that's drugs, whether that's family issues, whether that's abuse, whether that's, I don't know what else, blanking. But all of those things are things that you need to get freedom from. And it doesn't mean that there's not going to be a process. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be times where you're still going to need to work through those things. But if you are still dealing with those things, if you're still at a place where you've never sought counsel, you've never sought mentors or tried to give it to the Lord, that's not a good sign to move into a relationship with, because it'll bring that baggage with it. The next point on D is, are you currently in a battle with sin? That's the next little line there. That if you are at a place, and I already mentioned a couple things, the major ones, if you're a murderer, probably shouldn't be in a dating relationship. Girls, don't date a murderer. I hope I don't need to say that from stage. Okay, I'll pray for you, Ashley. I know you are. It's so important that you guys are not currently at a place where you are doing some sin, where you are addicted to pornography. I already mentioned that. Where you are sleeping around with a bunch of people, where you are doing drugs, where you're stealing, where you're beating people up and getting in fights all the time, where you're disrespecting your parents. All these things are strong telltale signs that you are not marriage material. And the same goes for when you're looking for somebody that is marriage material. That next point is, where are you at with your schoolwork and a future career? And this one has a strong preface with it because you guys are in high school. And a lot of you guys don't know exactly what you want to do with your futures. So my challenge for you isn't I'm 100%, I'm going to be a brain surgeon. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is that if you're just nah, I'll figure it out when I graduate, life goes on, that's something that almost disqualifies you from being this marriage material. That you should be at a place where you're yeah, man, I want to be an engineer. Next year, it's I want to be a lawyer. That's okay. Things are going to change. Your career's going to change probably 3 times throughout your high school career, if not more. And those things are okay, but you shouldn't just be shooting for nowhere. And the same goes for when you're doing schoolwork. If you can't even keep up with your homework, if you can't keep up with studying, if you can't keep up with these things, how are you going to keep up in a relationship? And there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about that. I want to encourage you, especially go talk to your parents in these things. Go talk to your parents like, hey, do you think I could add on like basically a full-time job while I'm doing this? Not really like a full-time job, but you know what I mean. Go talk to them and see. Talk to a mentor. Talk to one of the pastors here. The next point is, do you have counselors and mentors? I mentioned that already, and that's with the thought that you already had them, and you need them to check off the rest of this list and the previous parts of this list. That you need to have people in your life that you are going to, that you are telling every struggle that you have to, that you are getting advice from, that you are trusting and then also getting discipled by. And so if you don't have a mentor or you don't have counselors that you're going to regularly or leaders or whatever you want to call them, you're not at a place where you're going to be ready to move into a relationship. The next one. Now this one is dead serious and it's going to offend some of you. How is your health and hygiene? What I mean by that is if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of someone else. That's all I'm going to say. So, gallon of Axe body spray isn't the answer to this. Just look at John. Perfect hygiene, right? Everyone look at John. He loves it when people talk about his body. But, seriously, guys, dudes and girls, wear deodorant. Shh. Brush your teeth. Do your hair. Take a shower. Wear clean clothes. All those things. They are very important before you get in a relationship. Shh. Let me bring it back. Shh. The very last point that I have for you guys on, H, is, are your friends and hobbies making you a better person? Now, this is something that sounds kind of like, oh, yeah, like I've got good friends. Oh, yeah, like, I play baseball or I play football or, whatever it is. But the truth is that I've talked to people before. I've heard people tell stories of their friends disqualifying them from dating somebody. That if you talk to people, and if you talk to mature people that actually care about these things, they very much pay attention to the friends of the people that they're interested in. So for you, if you have friends that are negative and they talk and gossip a lot and they're just like, oh, that dude sucks and like all this kind of stuff, it's going to hinder your ability to move into a healthy relationship. And the same goes for your hobbies. That the same is true when you're looking for somebody, that you need to look for somebody that fits your lifestyle. You need to look for somebody that's going to be able to fit into what you want. And so I leave that with, are you guys working on all of these things? Because I think all of you guys in this room could probably say, yeah, like I'm doing great in, doing devotions and going to church and serving. I'm doing great in that. But, I don't wear deodorant or, whatever it is. And I want to challenge you guys to look at this list and process, because even if you're not pursuing a relationship, one day you're going to, and that's not the time to start working on this. That you should look at this and challenge yourself in, okay, I really need to get freedom from that sin in my past. I really need to find a counselor that's going to help me through that. It's going to bring me into freedom. I need to go to the freedom conference. I need to talk to my leaders. I need to do all these things. It's important. And then Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellence, if anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. And that's those things, the last slide. That's the things that you need to be dwelling on and pursuing the Lord before any of this next stuff comes into play. So now we're going to move on, because we're talking about how do you become that marriage material? How do you become a person that is worth dating and worth potentially marrying? Now what? That's the question, right? Because you guys are probably sitting there like, oh, I'm so great. I've checked off all these boxes. I'm a stud, or I'm a whatever. Can't say any of the words that you guys say now because they're all inappropriate. just the truth is, whoever apologized, that's hilarious. Now that you are marriage material, now that you're at that place, the very next step that you should do, and kind of can do while you're preparing to be marriage material, is write down what you want in a spouse and take that to a mentor. Yeah, that's that next point. Number 2, write down what you want in a spouse. As this is something that helps you see much more clearly when you are going to move into a relationship. Because I have seen many, many people that have wanted to get into a relationship. I've talked to them and heard them say oh, I want this type of person. And then they meet this other type of person and fall head over heels and they just give up on all of it. And then it ends badly. Write down exactly what you want in a relationship. Write down exactly who you want to date, exactly what type of characters you want in that man or boy or in that girl. Eventually a man, hopefully. And then take that to a mentor. And in that, write down deal breakers, write down the good things, write down the things that disqualify somebody immediately. I almost coughed straight into the mic. Sorry, guys. Once you take that to a mentor, hopefully your mentor is going to talk to you and tell you, hey, that's super unrealistic. You're never going to find that guy, or you're never going to find that girl. A good mentor is going to do that. But write down everything you can think of. And John 15:7 says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. Guys, in a way, write down and ask for the type of person you want. Ask for that type of future husband or future wife that you are desperately wanting, or I don't know, however you'd word that. Because so often, and I brought up those junior hires, so often young people, whether that's high schoolers, even college age people, and especially junior high, elementary, they simply start dating somebody because they like each other. It's we get along, and yeah, we're boyfriend, girlfriend now. We hold hands in the hallway, and it's cool. And that is not the right way to move into a relationship. Now, guys, I want to go through a few things that you should ask as you are starting to move into this place of looking for somebody to date. Good questions for you to ask of, is this person fitting into, there's a bunch of stuff, and we're going to get into it. And it comes from, in Proverbs 31, verse 30, it says, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. I only put this one up here because I didn't want to read a bunch. But this goes for guys as well, that, a guy who fears the Lord should be praised. And for you guys, you should be asking questions like, how do they handle their money? How do they handle, their $10 allowance that they get every Monday or whatever it is? How do they handle, if they have a job, and hopefully they should have a job, how do they handle that? Are they wasting it? Are they spending it on a bunch of V-Bucks in Fortnite? Or are they, I don't know, saving for retirement? That kind of stuff. The next one is this person a hard worker? Is the person that you're pursuing a hard worker that is going to do well in life? That's going to be successful, that has dreams and aspirations and wants to go out and actually do something? Do they live an upright life? Are they living a Christian life actually pursuing the Lord? Does this person wound people with their words? Are they talking well? Do they lift people up? Do they encourage people? Do they encourage you as you are moving into that? And a really, really, really big one for you guys is, what do your parents think of them? That is so important for you guys, and I can't stress enough that if your parents aren't okay with a person that you want to date, don't date them first off, because you guys know that's not going to end well. But second off, that's a big sign of something being off, because for most of you, your parents are smarter than you. No offense. The next one is what does your pastor think? So every single one of you need to go to John every time you like somebody and ask him. I'm actually serious, and I know John would probably tell you the truth. But also, go talk to your leaders. Go talk to your small group leader and be like, hey, like, I kind of think I want to like date this person. I know you're going to be awkward about it, but they're not going to feel as awkward. And ask them, what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea? What do you think of them? What's their reputation? Those are important things to ask. I mentioned earlier that you need to find somebody that fits your lifestyle. You need to find somebody that's going to fit into what you want in the future. Do you want to date a CEO of a company that's going to be gone 12 hours a day? Do you want to date somebody that's just going to work at 9 to 5 and be home at 5:30 every single day? Do you want to date somebody that has a crazy schedule? Do you want to date somebody in ministry? Do you want to date somebody that's adventurous and is going to live in a van for the rest of their life? I know people that want to date somebody like that. Doesn't make sense to me. Come talk to me afterwards and try and rationalize with me if you can. And the very last question, and it's the last question for a good reason, is are you attracted to them? Now this one comes with both sides of this. That the truth is that you shouldn't disqualify somebody for not being attracted to them, and you shouldn't just fall head over heels because you are attracted to them. And it's important that you give it time sometimes, that sometimes attraction comes with time, and you're just like, yeah, like, whatever, and then it grows. And that's important for you to be asking as well, because that does affect how a relationship's going to go. And guys, for you, all of you, how you answer these questions is going to change, or how you weigh these questions and get them answered is going to change the way that you move forward. For some of you guys, some of these are going to mean a lot more to you, and some of them aren't going to mean as much to you. Some of you guys aren't really going to weigh as much like, what's their future career going to be, because some of you guys just want to stay at home mom. Some of you girls, that's more of a major thing, because you're meant to be more of a nurturer, and the guy's meant to be more of a provider. And we can delve into that if you want to come talk to me, but I think that's pretty straightforward. So the third thing, after you have become marriage material, after you have written down what you want in a spouse, the next step is get to know someone in groups. That's the very next step you should do after you find somebody that you like. Now for you guys, this one's incredibly easy, because likely you go to school with them. That's like, or you go to the mission with them, or you see them on Sundays, or whatever it is. And it's important because you can learn so much about a person just by getting to know them in groups. And it's easy, especially because like the mission is a really easy place to take that. And I don't mean like, oh, you should be off in a corner one-on-one, like on your own little mini coffee date while everyone else hangs out. I mean, ask questions. Ask them, hey, what school do you go to? Or maybe you already know that. Hey, who do you live with? Hey, do you have a car? Hey, what do you want to do in the future? Hey, what's your favorite class in school? Whatever it is. Get to know somebody in groups. Now, the very next point is the tryout. Now, this is the point where you take all of these things and they culminate into like, honestly, 10 seconds. And once you have done this, once you have, I'm going to read them so I don't butcher them, become marriage material, once you have written down what you want, and once you get to know someone in a group, you should ask them out if you still like them. If you have checked off all these boxes, you should go up to them and say, hey, I like you. Let's go on a date together, I don't know, next Friday at 3 or, whatever it is. And the reason I say that, and you explicitly need to say, hey, let's go on a date, let's go on a date, let's go on a date, not like, hey, let's hang out. Like not that weird thing. It's important that you are asking legitimately what you are asking. You guys are going to leave this like weird feeling, and it could be really awkward if you're like, oh, we're on our first date right now, and she's like, this is just a guy that like we're hanging out. Like that's it. That's really awkward, or vice versa. Now the very last point is go on appropriate first dates. Now this applies to like what I hope is the obvious things, like don't go hang out in each other's bedroom afterwards. Like that's very clear and very obvious, and I hope you guys aren't going to do that. But what I'm actually talking about is the type of date that you go on. Guys, that the world has this very very skewed way of what dates should look like. And it's honestly disgusting. And if you talk to a very worldly person that's in their mid-20s, they have disgusting first dates. And for you guys, it doesn't have to be that way. And it comes with things like, ask clear words. Thank you for supporting me. Ask clear words. Ask clearly, hey, this is a date, so you don't end up in that weird situation. This one's important, and this one, causes a lot of strife a lot of times, but if you don't know the person very well, if you haven't, known them for 15 years, drive separately to your first few dates. Because the truth is, there's some creepers out there. Don't drive with somebody you don't know very well. That if you're at a place where you are stuck in an uncomfortable situation, you want to be able to leave. You want to be, or for some of you guys, you got to be able to text mom and say, Mom, I'm scared. And then she comes picks you up. Which is also part of all this. Have a car. I'm telling you guys, it doesn't work without it. The very next point is go to a public place, a restaurant, a coffee shop, not the San Diego riverbed, not the weird corner at your school that nobody goes to, not, let's hang out in my backyard, not none of that stuff. That is dumb. And I know people that was their first date. And then, it's important for you guys that not only does it need to be a public place, it needs to be somewhere that's conducive to get to know someone. I'm just going to say it, the dumbest first date is going to a movie. Do you know why? Anybody? Smartest guy in the room? Boom! This guy could do my job. So, all right, contain it. You can't talk to somebody. You can't talk to somebody at a movie. You can't get to know somebody. You're going to sit and watch probably a terrible movie, because every movie basically hasn't been good lately. You're going to watch something that just doesn't matter, and you're going to walk away literally knowing nothing new. And it's important for you to pick somewhere that is going to be conducive to you getting to know somebody. That's lunch, that's a coffee shop, could be dinner, whatever it is. The next thing is, don't make it a huge ordeal. You don't need some crazy 20-hour extravagant treasure hunt for your first date. You need to go out for an hour and a half, talk to each other, and then go home. And girls, I'm telling you right now, stop making dudes think it needs to be more. Because it doesn't. The whole point of you going on these first couple dates is to find out if you want to be in a relationship, if you want to be boyfriend and girlfriend. And it's important for you guys to keep it in a way that is possible to do. The next thing is put a boundary up with yourself to not share about deep childhood trauma. Guys, there is no reason, and I bring these things up partially because David Matrenga is the one that originally did this message. But I bring it up because I've also seen people that have brought up just weird things on a first date, and it's ruined everything. Rightfully so, because you shouldn't talk about weird childhood traumas. And that comes along with not just weird childhood traumas. Don't start making a bunch of weird promises. Don't get your hopes up super high and start treating it like this huge step that you're basically engaged now and it's going to be great from there. Treat it like it is. It's a date to see if you wanted to date somebody. And the last thing is that you should only ever go on 2 to 4 dates before you put a title on it. And I say that because without a title on it, you're not going to put boundaries on it. That I'm not going to start hanging out with somebody and then just be like, hey, let's sit down and write a bunch of boundaries. That's not how that works. And it's important for you to put a title on things so there's no confusion, so there's no hurt, so there's no lack of boundaries that leads to you slipping into sin. It's so important for all of you to only go on a couple of dates. And when you are on those couple of dates, guard your own heart. Guard your heart not to be in a place where you're like, oh, second date, wedding's next week. That's not how it works. Guard your heart to where you are at a place that you are okay if you go on 2 dates, then there's no third, and life goes on, you're friends again. You shouldn't be at a place where you are struggling because you went on 2 dates and it just devastated you because that was your knight in shining armor. You need to be at a place where you're guarding your heart to be able to move on from it. And guys, the reason that we're going over these things, the reason that we have this series, the reason I'm talking about this is so that you guys can have healthy future relationships, you can have healthy future marriages, you can have healthy friendships, and so that this community, this church, mini church within a church, whatever you want to call it, is at a place where it's thriving. Because we don't want you guys hurting each other. We don't want you hurting other people. We don't want you getting hurt. And next week, David Matrenga, right? David Matrenga is going to come talk about how we break down relationships, how we break down what it actually means to be dating somebody. And I believe he's going to touch into like, okay, then you're going to get engaged and that kind of stuff. But what it means to put up boundaries, how to put up boundaries, how to be at a place where you can keep each other loving the Lord. Also, band, come up here if you could. And so for you guys, if you're at this place where you're looking for this transition, I really do want to encourage you that all of these things are great checklists to run through right before you're like, oh, I want to go date. I don't want to say a name because there's probably one of you in here. And it's so important for you to be at a place where you're prepared to be marriage material, you know what you want, and then to start walking those things out, of asking the person out, of having healthy boundaries during those first couple dates and all that. And so guys, we are going to go into worship. So if you would stand up, not talk a bunch, and then I'll pray for us. All right, Father, I thank you that Father, I thank you that you have a good design for all of this. Lord, that you don't desire for us in any way to hurt people. You don't desire in any way for us to hurt ourselves or anything, Lord. That you have a beautiful plan for us set out to walk out and glorify you as we move into relationships. So God, I ask for your Spirit to be here. I ask for you to fill these students and leaders and whoever else is here, Lord. That we would worship you in your presence. We would worship you in truth, Lord. So God, come and dwell among us. Come and let us praise you in all earnesty. Because we love you, Lord. In your name.